7. Hello and welcome to the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island for the Detroit Regional Chamber's Mackinac Policy Conference. I'm Dave Scott in for Steve Lado, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here today. We're going to find out about our guests here in just a couple of minutes, but just an opportunity, first of all, to say hello and welcome. This event is Michigan's biggest political event, business event every year. We all get away in the business and politics community. I say we, I include myself, and all of the media, almost all of the media in Michigan, come up to the Grand Hotel to isolate for a couple of days and really focus on what Michigan's biggest issues are. I've been at this conference for the last 20 years, and it continues to grow and get better and more informative. This is kind of an interesting year, as you've seen some of the press conferences already, and Steve will be here tomorrow to talk more about some of the things going on. I'm just thinking about this year's conference, and there really doesn't seem to be one huge crisis. I mean, we don't have COVID, we don't have the auto industry shutting down, going through a renaissance, yeah. We don't seem to have any huge crisis, but there are still plenty of things to work on. And there are some troubling numbers here in the state of Michigan, and that is probably a good segue right into our first guest. Joining us now is Eric Lufer, and Eric is with the Citizens Research Council of Michigan. Eric, thank you very much for joining us. Great to have you here on My Michigan TV.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
We're streaming, Eric. What do you think about that?
It's the new world we live in.
It is. Well, it's good to have you with us. So I just said everything is okay, but the governor is going to hold a press conference tomorrow and be speaking to all the people here, and maybe everything isn't okay because our population in Michigan isn't growing. How big of a challenge is that for the state of Michigan?
It's a huge challenge. I use the parable of trying to boil a frog to get people to understand the situation we're in. Prior to the 1970s, we were one of the fastest growing places in the United States, faster than the U.S. average. We had per capita personal income higher than most other places in America, higher than most other places in the world. People wanted to be in Michigan, and it was a great place to be. Since the 1970s, our population hasn't been growing. This is where the parable of trying to boil a frog is if you put it in hot water, it jumps out. If you put it in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, the frog doesn't realize it's boiling and it stays in there. In 1970, we put Michigan into the cold water and we started turning up the heat. And we look around us and say, well, this is the Michigan we've always been in. Of course, everything is fine. But now we get a chance to look out the top of the pot and look at 48 other states growing faster than Michigan.
Wow.
And say, wait a second, maybe something is wrong here. Maybe I'm feeling the heat. And this is our moment to say, let's turn off the heat and fix what's wrong with Michigan.
Now, Eric, I'm going to ask you more about your organization in a minute, but I believe everything you're saying, so we'll just start with that foundation. These are the facts. I know you've done all the research here, and you understand these are the facts here in our state. So we're 48th. Is there a headline as to what is a big cause?
Well, it's bidirectional, right? Our economy is not growing. We are per capita personal income, or however you want to measure economic growth, has been slower than the U.S. average. Our education system is not producing quality education like we want it to. It's too expensive to go to college in Michigan compared to other states. So it's sort of bidirectional, right? Those things aren't causing the population growth, but they're also suffering from the lack of population growth. And so it works both ways. Our health system, our public health, the well-being of our citizens is below average compared to other states. So again, if you're a high school graduate or you're a college just getting that diploma and saying, I have a degree now, a marketable skill I can take anywhere in the world, we're losing too many of those people going to other states, and we're not attracting enough from all those other colleges to say, hey, Detroit and Michigan, Grand Rapids is the place you want to be and start your family and start your life. So we just have to do a better job of telling our story, both to our own citizens but to the rest of the world.
You know, Eric, it's a tough pill to swallow, right? Especially for me, I spend all of my time promoting Michigan. You know, my Michigan TV, we're, you know, with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, Dave Lorenz and the travel people, you know, certainly following what's going on in industry. We see all these good news stories. So, you know, when I think of states that are bleeding people, maybe from the national media, I mean, California comes to mind. New York comes to mind. That's what we hear, at least the political pundits telling us these states are in trouble, but you've got different news for us today.
Over 50 years, we just haven't been growing.
All
so, you know, those states have enjoyed maybe a higher peak, and now they're losing. But for us, it's sort of, you know, sort of a flat line. We haven't had the massive drop, but if we don't grow, then that's a problem.
So let's start. Go ahead. Forgive me. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the real problem, right? People say, well, 10 million people, isn't that good? What should we be? If 10 million is not the right number, and I don't know what the right number is, but part of the problem is that, like I was just saying, those high school graduates, those college graduates, is the 18 to 35-year-old population. With our last decade at the beginning of this century, the Great Recession 10 years ago, those people didn't see a future in the state, and too many of those are gone. So as I'm the tail end of the baby boom, as the baby boom leading up to me retiring in a few years, who's going to replace us? Who's going to take care of us in our retirement? Who's going to be the nurses and the doctors? Who's going to be middle management for all these companies at the conference here? And that's the real issue. Maybe 10 million is the right number, but if we don't get that working age population back in the state, we are going to have that decline similar to New York and California.
He's Eric Lufer. I'm Dave Scott. Eric is with the Citizens Research Council of Michigan. I hang out on our silly little television network here. Eric, you know, I want to believe that we're doing a little bit better with the young people because, you know, you look 10, 20 years ago and you would go to Detroit, you would go to Grand Rapids, and our downtowns were really suffering. But now I go to downtown Grand Rapids, Art Prize, beer, Kalamazoo, the same thing, Traverse City on fire, and downtown Detroit, I know we took a little setback, right, with COVID, but it's a pretty exciting place to be. A lot of people want to come, and we're seeing a real influx of young people into our urban centers, not only wanting to work there, but wanting to live there. Detroit, when I take people from out of town and I take them on a tour of Detroit, it's a totally different place right now. So is this curve improving? I mean, I could see it 10 or 20 years ago. I'm just still having trouble digesting what I know is the truth that you're telling me, but
Right.
Is it getting a little bit better with all this stuff going on?
I think there's nascent signs of growth. Right?
Okay.
We're seeing some good things happening. The problem is, how do we scale those up? So for all the good things happening in downtown Detroit, Detroit is still losing population.
Okay.
Mayor Duggan thinks otherwise, but census still says we're still losing people. In mid-Michigan, right, if you look at the mitten, the knuckles across the
Right.
mitten, a very old population, a very poor health population, and not at all a growing population. The Upper Peninsula losing people. So yes, there's pockets. Our West Coast, all those cities, great. You know, this time of year, everybody wants to be over there enjoying the sand and the sun, in a real sense of place. But how do you scale that up throughout the whole state, and how you address the global issues that we're feeling?
Well, I guess, Eric, as you look at leading factors and you take a look, just, you know, anecdotally for myself, I'm not a researcher like you are, but, you know, I guess one thing that supports all this is I take a look at retail and the retail establishments in the state. And there are a lot of them that are struggling. And I know in the community I live in, a lot of the malls are going through ownership transitions, and there's a lot of turmoil in the retail commercial development market. You could see it just, you know, driving down the road in the state of Michigan, and that's probably certainly vindicates what you're talking about. And that's just one sector.
It is, but it's indicative, right? A lot of that reflects urban sprawl too. So
Sure.
A lot of those malls were inner ring suburbs or downtown areas. There are small, mid-sized cities, a lot of vacancy, boarded up windows and things like that. At the same time, the outer ring suburbs around all those places can't come up with the taxes to provide the services the people want because they've moved out of those cities. So it's a big picture problem, and we've just had this laissez-faire approach to it, and it's time to say enough, and it's time to come up with a plan to address all these things.
All right, I like that. So here we are at the Mackinac Policy Conference, where all we have to do is get all of these 1,500 people together, have a couple of cocktails, and our problems will be totally solved, right? It kind of seems like that. We do come here year after year, identifying our problems. You don't always follow up on them real well, but we do make an effort, and that's the first start. So tomorrow, the governor will have a press conference. She's going to use the data that you have shared with us anecdotally today. Does she have a solution that she's going to talk about tomorrow, or is that out of your bailiwick?
Well, we don't know what she's going to say. We should know there's some going to be council, commission, some blue ribbon government task force put together to address it. We do know that if we do nothing, the results will not be good. So step one is admitting you have a problem and pulling a group together to start addressing it. Step two is to make those items actionable and make them long lasting. This can't be something that only lasts during the Whitmer administration. It has to last for many administrations. So that's why we need the buy-in from everyone. Who knows what the next administration will be, Republican, Democrat, something different. But we need these plans. They have to have time to work, right? 50 years to get here. We're not going to address it in 6 months remaining in 2023 or 3 years left in her administration. It needs long-term action.
Well, it's not her fault. Maybe not at all. I mean, it's been administration after administration, and you know, everyone loves to get political and blame one side or the other, depending on where you sit, right? But you know, you can't do that here because your numbers indicate that it's been going on for a while here, right?
It has been going on for a while. It's a problem handed to the Whitmer administration. It was handed to the Snyder administration. So there's enough blame to go around, and we just can't be looking backwards. We need to look forward, positive actions going forward, and we're hopeful.
What are the components of solving this? I mean, your job is to find out the information, share it, scare us a little bit, let everyone know where we're really at. But are there components that you've identified through your research that are places that we might want to start looking for a solution?
Yeah, we think it starts with investing in people. So we have to take the action, the work of Launch Michigan and others that are caring about our K-12 education system, put those into action, let them work. Funding our higher education system, keeping those kids when they get here. Investing in people, that also public health, fix our public health system. It requires investing in place, right? Having those downtowns like we're saying in Grand Rapids and Traverse City and Detroit where people want to be, that has to happen in a lot more places. But it also requires fixing our infrastructure, our roads, our water and sewer, no more collapsed dams, all that type of stuff affects how we feel about our state. And then we have to tell our story to the rest of the world that we're a place that you want to be, to attract national migrants coming from other states, but also international migrants coming to Michigan, being part of the talent base that we need to grow our state. Most of the international immigrants coming to Michigan have a higher education than the population that's here. So that's the talent we need to be able to attract those high-paying knowledge economy jobs that we need to attract to the state.
I was just hoping the Lions getting better would bring everybody here, but
now you're just thinking beyond the realm of possibility.
It's gonna take a little bit more of that. Citizens Research Council of Michigan. That's a lot of words and a bunch of syllables. Tell us about your organization.
We are a 107-year-old organization that was created back in the progressive era with the idea that our public officials need good information to make good decisions. So we're not a conservative group, we're not a progressive group, we're a good government group that tries to find the information so state and local policymakers have the information when they're debating an issue, they know the facts and they can all agree on those facts to decide whatever policy lens they want to put to it. But if we can't talk with the same language to each other, we can never agree on those facts. And so we cast that policymaker with a very broad net. Clearly it's the governor and the legislature, but it's city council, it's county commissions, and ultimately it's we the citizens who elect those people and every 4 years have to vote on a ballot issue on amending our Constitution or adopting state law one way or another.
Eric, can citizens, can the people you were just talking about, voters in Michigan, directly access your information?
Everything is on our website, crcmich.org, crcmich.org.
PR people, he got that in 2 or 3 times. That was good. Okay. One more time.
crcmich.org.
Okay.
crcmich.org. And yeah, we have papers from throughout our history, so hundreds of papers, not all of them, but if you see something you're interested in, let us know and we'll get those papers online.
How do you fund your organization?
We are funded through foundation support, through corporate support, and individuals who appreciate having facts out there, right? In this day and age with everybody partisanship to pushing us further and further apart, people value the facts. They want to have that information so they can understand that and make up their own mind about it.
So, you know, I'm not an active journalist anymore. I run my company and do a lot of other things. Honestly, I was surprised to hear this information today. Do most people living here in the state of Michigan that are active or casual observers of the news know that we are at the bottom when it comes to growth and that we're really at the top when it comes to population loss?
I think people have a sense that it hasn't been good. Hearing that we're 49th out of 50 states is eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah, certainly was for me. Eric, thank you very much for your time.
This
has been really great. I really appreciate it. Good information, and thanks for being part of the solution. We appreciate it.
I'm glad you're up here on the island doing this.
Well, we're having a lot of fun. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more. We're live here at Mackinac Island at the Detroit Regional Chambers Policy Conference. A whole lot more coming up. We're here at the Grand Hotel, and in just a minute, we're going to talk to the folks at the Grand and find out what's going on here, so don't go away. I'm Dave Scott, in for Steve, and we'll be right back.
My Michigan TV is streaming everywhere on Apple TV, Roku, Fire TV, and more smart TV apps. My Michigan TV is on your phone, too. Take us with you wherever you go. Just search for My Michigan TV on your favorite app store or visit mymitv.com. All Michigan, streaming everywhere. My Michigan TV.
Welcome to Mackinac Island.
We were just named the #1 island destination in the continental U.S. by Travel and Leisure magazine.
We are proud of our little slice of paradise.
And hope we have a chance to visit soon.
So hop on in and treat yourself
to fascinating history,
delicious island traditions,
and an unforgettable nightlife.
We look forward to seeing you soon on Mackinac Island.
A breath of fresh air will do you a world of good. It'll help you press pause and see things a little more clearly.
And when you step outside and take it in, a world of worry gets swept away.
And what's left?
Just feels right.
Breathe in deep and let fresh renew your spirit in pure Michigan.
Don't call me. Welcome back. Dave Scott here on My Michigan TV, in for Steve Lado. We're right here at the Grand Hotel. Normally, you wouldn't be able to sit here. We are in the amazing dining room here at the Grand Hotel. It's great to be here during the Mackinac Policy Conference, put on, of course, by the Detroit Regional Chamber. Couldn't be any place but the Grand Hotel. You've got to be able to get away from the business community and all the distractions to really have an opportunity to take a look at some of the issues. And this is a long-standing event that's been happening here at the Grand. It's great to be sitting here with David Jersek, the president of the Grand Hotel. Thank you for your hospitality.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Well, it's awful good to have you on. So it's been exciting around here, you know, the transition from the Musser family to this new company. And I just give you a big thumbs up all the way around. I'm sure you understand there were some people. We've had a long relationship with the Mussers here in Michigan. They have done a great job as a trustee of this property, but nobody really owns the Grand, really. So it's in your tenure, you're off to a great start. How's it going?
Really well. I mean, our ownership has a true understanding of their responsibility to being great stewards to this property. The Mussers did a phenomenal job. Dan Musser, still our chairman emeritus. I speak to Dan regularly. We spoke yesterday on how things were going. But we've done an incredible amount of investment into the property. Since we bought it in 2019, the end of 2019, we've put about $75 million into the property. From restorations to renovations to expansions. And people have come back with a little worry. Hey, you know what? I would have been concerned too. From an outside, I mean, person that was we have guests that are emotionally connected to this property through their generational. And so when there's a change like that, there should be a concern. I think we've lived up to that. I think when people come back and look at the pool, they look at some of the facade work that we've done this past year, I think people have been very happy.
Well, you can't make everybody happy, but David, you guys have really won over. You've won me over. You've won over, I think, virtually everybody here. And, this is part hotel, part museum, part legacy vacations for us and our families. But let's start at some of the big changes that have happened. And the first most conspicuous one was that beautiful new pool that you put in on the property, and it's magnificent.
So I won't say new. So the pool was 100 years old.
Okay.
At the 100th anniversary of the Esther Williams pool, we restored it.
Okay.
So the footprint of the pool is the footprint of the pool. We didn't change that. It used to be 11 feet deep on one side. Insurance doesn't really like 11-foot deep pools. So it's a consistent about 4.5 feet across. But we added more chairs and expanded the opportunity to be closer to the pool. If you remember the old pool, everybody kind of sat up on the lawn and then you went down to the pool. We've put cabanas up and opportunities, a great pool bar, a really cool water slide. Back in the day, there was a slide there, but it was a metal slide that you and I used to go down on the playground.
Yep.
And we've expanded it, but also look back in history and how we could actually enhance what was there, but also have a historic approach to it and recognize the importance of that historical touch.
Well, and it's okay. You can run this property the way you want. You guys do own it now, and certainly you recognize, maybe more so than the Mussers to some extent, the importance in attracting the kind of people that you want to have come here. Maybe people that haven't been to the Grand before. That is a very important piece to the puzzle. Don't you think that when you have somebody that wants to come to a summer resort?
Absolutely. And when we seek other destinations and other markets to try to enhance our greater exposure, and we're able to do that. However, I don't want to forget about our most loyal customer, the customer that's been coming here for years. The first guest that I met had been coming to Grand Hotel for 70 years. 70 years is a long time, and that's generational. That's as a child, then his kids, and then his grandchildren, and soon to be great-grandchildren. Those are things that we don't want to miss. One of the things, however, what we are focusing on are families. Over time, the new generations are always looking at something different. So as the children come, they're looking at some other, what's fun and what's exciting for them too. Mom and dad love it when your kids are having fun, but we want the kids to tell mom and dad, we need to go back to Grand Hotel. We had such a great time at Grand Hotel at the pool or at the Woodlands Activity Center. Mom and dad bring us back. And so I think that's something that brings those generations together, as well as a love for Grand Hotel.
And you've maintained many of the traditions too, some of the traditional big weekends that have always been a part of the Grand Hotel's calendar.
Absolutely, opening weekend, but also one of the great things is Jazz Weekend on Labor Day.
You bet, that's what I was thinking about.
One of the ones that I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
We're actually adding a little twist this year. We're going to put a little blues
nice.
on Jazz Weekend.
Perfect.
So, but straightforward jazz, great musicians on tap this year, a great gospel choir on Sunday morning for our breakfast, and then a little touch of blues.
It is different. I mean, let's be honest. It is different. It's a different experience going to the Grand Hotel than I think any other property in the state of Michigan. And
Could be the United States. Yeah.
Well, okay, forgive me. Maybe a little. Okay, so talk about that.
So let's just take the architecture aside. I'll take that first. Between 1800 and 1900, there were about 1,200 of these large wood-framed hotel structures built by railroads and, in our case, a steamship line. There's only 11 left. So that just puts us in small company. Add the history of a hotel that's only open seasonally on an island that for the last 135 years hasn't allowed a car on the island. There's something special about the island, and then Grand Hotel just adds to that. And it's, you know, I talked to somebody earlier today about this conference in particular. You know, the hustle and bustle of Detroit or wherever you're at, whether you're on downstate in Ann Arbor, Lansing, whatever it is, you're on the go all the time. Here on Mackinac Island, especially at Grand Hotel, you know, it's just a slower pace. It's an opportunity for you and I to have, you know, sit in the parlor and talk.
Yeah, I
don't
really
have to worry about, you know.
I feel bad when I'm sitting on your porch with my laptop, which I only do on a very limited basis because I'm trying to make some technology work.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it's not the place to bring your. I mean, you can, but
and we've boosted up the
you
Wi-Fi
have it
because you
works
need to.
great. But it's different here, and I think one of the other things that's so amazing is the food, obviously, and the way this whole dining room works. People can't see the whole thing. We're only seeing a small piece of it here. But when you have a meal here, and there's hundreds of people being served a beautiful 5-course plus meal, and it's all perfect. I mean, it's an amazing work of art. I finally, when I loaded into it yesterday, had a chance to see your kitchen, the back of it, for the first time ever.
It's about as big as the dining room.
But how do you guys do that? How does all that work without getting too deep in the weeds?
You know, I think it's planning in everything we do. We have 3 menus, rotating menus. We train the staff on a daily basis. They do tastings of all the 5 courses every day, even though we do it every 3rd day. And not only do we teach them what it is, we teach them the preparation of it. So when they sit at the table and you have something that's going to be delivered to you, they know how it was prepared, what the chefs have done, and what the taste factor is, because they've tasted all the food. But the one thing about Grand Hotel, and I'll use the dining as an experience, is that this is truly yesteryear's dining experience. You know, no longer do you run out, have your meal, get your check, and go to the next event. This is something that's being extended into the evening. It's an hour and a half, 2-hour, 5-course meal. Then you leave here to go to demi-tasse and an after-dinner cocktail, and then you walk right into dancing at 9:30. It's an experience that lasts the entire night, as it was in the early or late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, an afternoon tea that I know, I've never seen that anywhere else. You know, it's very cool, the way it all works here.
It all works.
It is amazing that it all does work. And certainly the architecture and particularly the interior design in this property has always been magnificent, and the kind of look you can only pull off on Mackinac Island at the Grand.
So Carlton Varney was our designer for years.
Right.
Mr. Musser brought him in the late 70s. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of split towards the end of the Musser ownership. And this year, we're excited that we re-engaged with Dorothy Draper and Company. Unfortunately, this past off-season, Carlton passed away. His son, Sebastian, took over the company, and we have re-engaged with them. And proud to say that their first work, that Sebastian and Rudy Saunders, the lead designer, was to redesign the Carlton Varney suite, as to pay homage to an incredible designer.
See, people don't realize that every room here is different. Every room is unique, and the designs are unique. This place has it has an amazing history and a very unique approach to interior design.
And you know, Carlton Varney learned from Dorothy Draper, and Dorothy Draper was probably in legacy the greatest female designer historically. She said back, late 30s, that Americans were afraid of color. In some cases, we may not be afraid of it. We're a little taken back by some audacious colors that we have here, but people love it. It speaks to Grand Hotel, and you can't walk into a room in Grand Hotel and not think summer. Everything kind of brings out that summer experience to you.
So what's coming up? Anything new or more of the same, or anything you want to tease us with about other things that may be developing and on the horizon here at the Grand?
So as you come this year, you're going to see a few new things. So we have the Jockey Club. We used to have some tents outside, and we dine in tents outdoors. We've built a beautiful pavilion, expanded the outside space to what's called a lantern lounge. We have a beautiful tree that we have lanterns hanging off of.
Nice.
We expanded woods and renovated woods or restored woods. and we built a pizza company called Mackinac Island Pizza Company. Original Detroit-style pizza.
Great.
So I challenge everybody that loves Detroit-style pizza to come upstate, come up to the island, try our pizza and see if it doesn't measure up.
Well, great job with everything. Nice to get to know you here, and I look forward to keeping in touch. And if you want to come to the Grand, you should call that number. It's 1-800
Grand. And 31.
Grand 31, right.
And so the other opportunity is grandhotel.com. That's where you're going to find it.
Easier there.
Go to grandhotel.com. There's a tab, a tile on all of our package page called Grand Favorites. And it's our opportunity to showcase some of the incredible events that we have each month. And those incredible events each month are experiential, great value, and allow some flexibility. So if you have something specific you want to come to Grand for, whether it be a wine event, or whether it be a food event, whether it be a wellness event, do that. But if you're just wanting to come up for the summer and look for some great value, or you're flexible in dates, look on the page called Grand Favorites.
Grand Favorites.
Yes.
And there are opportunities when the island is not jam-packed, where maybe you'll find a better value opportunity.
Or day of week.
Too, right?
Yep, it could be day of week as well.
So Tim High, who does a great job running your Convention and Visitors Bureau, every time I see him, it's, we just won this national award. I mean, we just won that national award. The island is really on fire.
It is.
And you're a major part of that. But it's got to be exciting to be here in this place at this point in your career, to be at such an amazing destination.
Absolutely. In the fall, Travel and Leisure rated as the #1 island destination in the United States. And USA Today this spring rated as the #1 travel destination in the United States. It's back-to-back. It's bookends of incredible national championship-like titles, and this island, it lives up to every expectation.
Well, David, thank you very much for taking a couple of minutes, and thank you for the great work you're doing here to maintain the legacy of the Grand Hotel.
Thank you.
Everyone in Michigan appreciates it. It's next to the bridge, I can't think of another more visible icon than the Grand Hotel.
And we're right next to it.
And you are. You're right here. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a minute. We'll shift and talk a little bit of politics and Michigan news in just a minute. When we return, I'm Dave Scott. You are watching Steve Lato's show. Steve will be here live and in person tomorrow, and we'll continue in just a minute here from the Grand Hotel.
We've all been looking forward to a return to normalcy, especially when it involves a breath of fresh air, a dip in the water, the chance to explore, or just the opportunity to take a break and enjoy the view. Our time is now. Start making your plans now to visit Ludington at pureluddington.com.
What makes a destination special? Experience wide open spaces, peaceful lakes, winding trails, sweeping vistas, and flowing rivers. All natural, all good, all fun. Your all-outdoors adventure awaits at GaylordMichigan.net.
A message from Detroit to everybody. The adventurers, the explorers, the nomads, and the foodies, the art enthusiasts, and the music lovers. When you're ready to come, Detroit is ready to go. From shopping and museums to restaurants, parks, and more, Motown has way too much to do in just a single day. When the time is right, all this is waiting for you in Detroit. Begin planning your next trip at visitdetroit.com.
Hello and welcome back. Steve Lato Show. No, of course I'm not Steve, Dave Scott. Steve will be here tomorrow. He's traveling to the Grand Hotel at Mackinac Island, where we are broadcasting live today, and we'll be through tomorrow. Of course, it is the Detroit Regional Chamber Mackinac Policy Conference going on, and we'll talk about that a little bit about what we're doing. So this is this is my challenge as the owner of the television network here, to see if I can pull off a little Steve Lado. Not the easiest thing to do in broadcasting, because Steve jumps on here every day and without a script, without an agenda, with probably a little plan, and broadcasts for an hour and shares very interesting things for you about the state of Michigan. Now, it's much easier for Steve than me. Steve is certainly a highly celebrated author here in the state, has written about many of our historic locations. He is one of the most avid historians here in the state of Michigan. Steve is also a very knowledgeable lawyer doing a lot of work around the automotive industry with lemon law and other automotive cases, and just a lot smarter than Dave Scott. So easy for him to sit here and be interesting for 10 minutes, but a lot of fun and a good challenge for me. So I'm delighted to be here. So let's start and talk a little bit about all this. So the Detroit Chamber's Mackinac Policy Conference. For me, and for our team, it's like Christmas and New Year's and the 4th of July all wrapped up into one. It's a great opportunity. This is a very unique event. So if you're in the sales and marketing arena, which I am, and you know now, maybe more than any time in our history, it is extremely difficult to reach out and meet people to make business connections. With all of the social media and everything going on the web, you'd think it'd be a lot easier. But a lot of business connections are one-on-one. So it's really hard to pick up the phone and call somebody you don't know. I mean, you get all the spam calls on your phone. You probably do, like I do. So it's difficult to reach out and meet people. This event is so amazing because there are people here that are comfortable, that are relaxed, they've let their hair down, they maybe don't have their connections to all their networks, they've slowed down a little bit for a couple of days, and you literally have the top elected officials here in the state of Michigan, plenty of national figures, and really some serious movers and shakers from here in the state of Michigan in the business community that are here, that are in a relaxed environment without the pressures of their day, and you can just sit down and have some real conversations with people that you wouldn't normally be able to have a conversation with. Case in point, I'm walking down the porch, the iconic porch here at the Grand Hotel, 2 hours ago, and I looked there, and there is Mike Tirico, who I know a little bit because he comes on the Mitch Album Radiothon that we do help produce every year at the Somerset Mall. But Mike is sitting there on his phone, just relaxing and doing what he was doing. This is the guy that calls our Lions games. If the unlikely event that we end up on a nationally televised broadcast, and he's the play-by-play play-by-play guy for NBC for their Sunday Night Football package. There is not a more famous television sports broadcaster in our country right now than Mike. He's sitting here, and he was so nice. I walked up to him, said hello, told him I was a fan. We did a little bit of work together and had a really nice conversation about the Detroit Lions, whose game he's going to be calling when the Lions open up their season against Kansas City, the Super Bowl champions, and he's going to be the guy on national television doing the play-by-play. So a really good example of the kind of people that are just walking the halls here. National media people like Mike, a lot of business leaders. So and then the elected officials. So what you'll see an awful lot is just people sitting down, trying to do some business, and more than just trying to conduct some business transactions, talking about the challenges that we have here in the state of Michigan, and everybody working together to try to solve them. And it's done in a congenial and, sometimes very fun environment. There'll be activities all over the island, a lot of the clubs here and bars, calling them clubs, not the right term, but a lot of the restaurants and bars will be booked later on today, and just a good opportunity for different corporate plays here in the state of Michigan to host a party, have their people all on site, have their customers on site, and be able to make some great connections. So this event is like none other that I've seen anywhere for regional events such as this, and people getting together, sharing information, and then there's always a lot of news that's made here. So that's our little role here at My Michigan TV. Jared back in our studios in Troy, and Ken Cooper is here, and yours truly have been working really hard to bring all the press conferences from this event and stream them to the Detroit Chamber's website and bring them here to you on our channel. So that's what we're doing here, and then throughout having an opportunity to be able to have some other conversations with some of the people that are here. Steve Lato will be here tomorrow and have an opportunity to host a bunch of interviews. He's going to talk to the president of Michigan State University, amongst others. Really kind of a challenging time at Michigan State after the shooting that they had, and just with other news and challenges going on in education. So that'll be interesting, and just a whole lot more. So that's what we're doing here. It's great to be here. We're sitting right now, our broadcast right here is in an area that they call Radio Row. And it's kind of interesting. Over the 20 years that I've been coming to this conference, this area here has really grown, and it's evolved and gotten bigger and bigger as social media and the radio, television, and broadcasting industry has changed. 20 years ago, WJR broadcasting in the parlor. Nobody else was here. They invented this live broadcast here. And then over the years, more people wanted to come. And so now, as I look around, we have some of our top media outlets in the state, and then a lot of other people too. Folks like us that maybe aren't the top media outlets, but in this era have certainly a streaming or a podcasting or a radio broadcast. So WWJ is here, Channel 4 is here, Crane's Business right next to us, WDET Radio down the way. So we do have the leaders of our industry here, Michael Patrick Shields and his statewide radio program here, and a whole lot more. But there's also a lot of other focused columnists here as well, and podcasters, and all kinds of different forms of digital media, and you kind of filled out this whole area here. It's really quite interesting. So exciting to see all of this activity going on here, and it's just another aspect of this conference that is unique. And for newsmakers, for politicians, especially during an election year, this event is like the go-to event, and everybody is here. It's unfortunate when there's some big vote or something going on nationally that prevents them from being here, but nice turnout. And the guy who knows more about all that, we're going to talk to in a minute. I'm going to take a break. Rick Pluta from Michigan Public Radio is going to check in, and you know, I've been here for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. He has been here for almost centuries at this event. Well, not quite. But we're going to talk to him in just a couple of minutes, get his perspective, and our conversation will continue. Thank you very much for viewing and watching and streaming wherever you are. I'm Dave Scott in for Steve Lato, and we'll be right back. Boom.
My Michigan TV is streaming everywhere on Apple TV, Roku, Fire TV, and more smart TV apps. My Michigan TV is on your phone too. Take us with you wherever you go. Just search for My Michigan TV on your favorite app store or visit mymitv.com. All Michigan, streaming everywhere. My Michigan TV.
Out here with the squad, everybody trying to go, yeah, the party jumping off, and we putting on a show, trying to catch a vibe. We do this every time, like na 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 na. This is where I wanna be, na na na. Never ever gonna leave, na na na. You ain't gonna get it from me. I'm like na 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 na.
Looking for the perfect weekend getaway? Love Lansing like a local. And we promise, you'll love Lansing just as much as we do.
Hello, welcome back to the Grand Hotel. Dave Scott here on My Michigan TV. We are in the iconic restaurant here. Everything is the iconic here at the Grand Hotel. You got the iconic porch, you got the iconic restaurant, on and on. We're in the we're in this amazing dining room, really, at the Grand Hotel for the Mackinac Policy Conference, the Detroit Regional Chamber, where all the top people in the media seem to get together each and every year. It's always a big news story. And certainly having Rick Pluta here is no big surprise from Michigan Public Radio. Hi, Rick.
Top people in the media and me.
You're one of the top people in the media. You know, for a couple of years, I got to help chase the governor around in a role at that time. And you know, that was decades ago, and
fun.
you certainly were one of the most respected people of the Lansing press corps following the governor, and I think it's safe to say that you still are.
I think that anything I would say after this would be a mistake.
So, Rick, very good to have you here. Is there anything unusual or different about this conference? How many of these have you been at?
I
You're not even going to count. Okay, but probably more than 20.
Oh,
or in
yeah.
that, yes.
Yeah.
So, is there anything different and unique this year than what you've seen in the past?
Each Mackinac conference is its own thing for a whole bunch of reasons. You know, the people who are chairing it have different ideas about what it should be, and also, in some respects, the challenges every year are different, and then sometimes, they're not. That a lot of attention being paid this year to population and the census. We hear Mayor Duggan talking about that a lot. That Michigan is gaining population, but not as fast as other states, and there is a cost to that in terms of political representation in Washington, D.C., and the benefits that come with that in terms of policy making and federal dollars. And so that's a big deal. But at the same time, that's a focus this year that's a little different than last year and the year before.
Right.
But it's also the same in, you go back to when Jennifer Granholm was governor, and one of the people that was invited to speak at a conference at her behest was Richard Florida, the futurist, talking about cool cities. And here we are back again talking about cool cities. What can we take to attract younger people to both come here and then stay here? And you look out at the view and the lovely Straits of Mackinac and the Great Lakes. It would seem like we have something to sell, and not getting the success that people are hoping for. So what's the magic formula to make Michigan the destination that policymakers would like it to be? And we're hearing a lot of talk about that, not just in terms of the placemaking, but also the policy making. Governor Whitmer talking about, for example, abortion rights, one of the most controversial issues of her, of her second term. And she's saying that this is going to be something that's going to help attract young people, that the bigotry is bad for business. So looking at racial justice reforms and things like that, that's a lot of the focus of what we're hearing here. Not the bread and butter business issues that you would expect to hear about.
Well, there's always been a big balance at this conference every year between political agenda, business agenda, and you talked about a number of things that have been going on at this conference over the past decades, initiatives that people have tried to move here. And, I kind of think of it like the Detroit Lions. They lost for so many years, and finally they're turning things around. You got to work hard at this stuff. It isn't automatic. And, and For me, I was surprised to learn earlier this hour that Michigan is 48 in population growth. We're losing a lot more population than we think. And you mentioned the cool cities thing, and I mean, just anecdotally, Detroit is a hell of a lot cooler. Grand Rapids is abundantly cooler than when I went to college there in the 70s. So we have moved in the right direction.
Oh yeah, when I lived in Detroit, I lived in what was then called the Cass Corridor. And it was a very, very different place than the spectacular experience that is Midtown today. People that I worked with, downtown, thought that I was crazy for living in the city. And I was, I had moved there from the East Coast, and I was like, well, I work in the city. Of course, I live in the city. Why on earth wouldn't I? And just the vibe was so different. The expectations of the experience of living in a city like Detroit or Grand Rapids was very, very different.
But it was a surprise, and I know that we need to work on this. We can't be at the bottom of that curve. Kids are leaving this state. They want to, even though we've made improvements, and obviously we need to attract the businesses, and but that's a good thing for them to be concerned about from a global level at this kind of a conference where you don't look at micro issues, you look at macro issues. It's about the only thing that we really can look at here, right?
An optimist would say that there is a lot of upward potential to look at.
Well, I guess it's a good thing, as good as anything else for them to look at is, that is the barometer of the health of our state, I guess, other than other economic factors. Do people want to hang out here, or do they want to live somewhere else? It is hard, though, to accept that when you look out the window and you see all the good things that are going on around Michigan.
Well, I mean, people who are native Michiganders wonder why, it's so difficult to get more people interested in living here. And again, that's the nut that's always been so difficult to crack. Although one of the issues, and this is coming up, this is a business conference.
Sure.
Primarily, and one of the things that's coming up is incentives. And incentives are, business attraction incentives, financial incentives are something that they have bipartisan support. But as you know, they also have bipartisan opposition. And it's been really hard to keep Michigan on a consistent track when it comes to whether or not we're going to use incentives, and if we are, how we're going to use them. And that has changed from gubernatorial administration to gubernatorial administration, and sometimes even during gubernatorial administration.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. We all know it, right? Nobody wants to give away money to huge corporations that shouldn't need a big giveaway. But at the same time, all the other states we compete with. But I did read that big article a couple of months back in the Detroit Free Press talking about the legislature wanting to put their fingers on it too. It's primarily been Michigan Economic Development Corporation, along with the rest of the administration, working on these incentive packages. And if I understand what I was reading, you're closer to it than I, that now others in Lansing want to get involved in the process.
Well, I mean, one of the characteristics of representative government is every representative, elected and sometimes otherwise, would like to have their fingerprints on something that they expect to be a success. Or they want to adjust them in ways that the constituencies, plural, I mean, it's back home where their districts are, but also the businesses or the not-for-profits or some other entity that has an interest in what direction a policy is going to make and how business location policies are going to work.
And we see the big ones. We see the big, huge incentives for downtown Detroit developments. We see the big brownfield renovations. We see development, right? Rural development for battery plants and whatnot. So are these things essential for our state to grow?
Oh, I mean, look, we are the anchor of Michigan's economy. That small businesses are a big deal, but a lot of those businesses are businesses that serve the big three, or they're somewhere in the supply chain to, I'm not just the big three, but the automotive industry.
Sure, right.
Or they're somewhere in the supply chain serving the big assembly plants or things like that. It's one of the reasons why landing an assembly plant is, it's the big fish that you want to get, because it's not just the jobs and the economic drivers that come with that, but with that being there, but all of the large, medium, and small businesses that can then locate within the supply chain that's serving them.
So we only have a little time left. I appreciate all your perspective on all this, but here's what I really want to ask you today. So you've been a journalist for decades here in the state of Michigan.
It's about 1987.
During your tenure, I think it's safe to say, and I've been in and out of this game, but I think it's safe to say that the reputation and public image of journalists has deteriorated, not certainly because of your fine work, Rick, but has deteriorated because of the political discourse. And any thoughts about what's going on in journalism today? And I mean, obviously all the technology, you look around this room, has certainly changed, but it seems that there's been more to that, more than that.
Well, maybe I'm a cockeyed optimist, but I mean, certainly it's taken a beating just because of the political tone of the times, but also we were in a period where monetizing news gathering, which is necessary. I mean, you've got to be able to, pay the people who are gathering the news all the technology that is necessary to deliver the news. And newspapers are always looking at the price of newsprint as a major driver of how many people they were going to have in their newsrooms. The idea was that we were going to deliver it for free for the longest time. But you can't pay journalists and newsprint, the internet, and the cameras that your audience can't see, but are necessary.
So to make the money, I'm in Lansing, and I visit one of my clients, and across the street is the old Lansing State Journal building, which is a ghost town. It's just scary what's happened on the print side. But certainly the media, the electronic media especially, shouldn't be ashamed that we have to go out and fund ourselves. Even the public radio and television side's got to make sure you got funding.
We do, although our funding source has been pretty stable, that we're obviously subject to the same vicissitudes of the economy that everyone else is, but there seems to be less and less an expectation now that news is going to be free, that people are returning to the expectation that they will have to pay something for news via
the print side,
subscriptions.
The print side, definitely, they've had to see that, especially. I mean, almost all of our major print publications, and we've got these new upstart, they've been around for a while, like Bridge and others, that they're making these models work.
They are.
So you're optimistic about your industry?
I think that, things can change, and it's obviously not the industry that it was, but I think at this moment, it's moving in a good direction. We will see if that momentum continues.
Still fun to run around chasing the governor around town and around the state?
It's the best job.
Glad to hear it. Rick, thank you. Always good to see you. Thank you for doing this in a little bit more of a public environment here, so I appreciate it. He's a great guy, Rick Pluta. Thank you very much for joining us. Hey, that's it for us today. Been so much fun. Steve Lato will be here tomorrow, much more capable of doing this, but it should be a lot of fun. And we're going to talk to the president of Michigan State University. We're going to talk to some of the other newsmakers here and try and get to the bottom of what's happening here at the Mackinac Policy Conference. I hope you have enjoyed what we did today and continue to check in. I'm Dave Scott, in for Steve Lato. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon right here on My Michigan TV. Wow, ended right in time.